Hi everybody, this is Kimberly. I am back again to give you some positive tips on some things that you should do in your job search, okay? I just recently did a video on the things that you should not do, and so I thought I would split it up and then do this video on the things that you should do. So if you are a job seeker, it's important that you're doing things properly in your job search, and I want to make sure that you know what to do, okay? Some of these you may have heard before, you may be familiar with these. But thought I would come on out because I don't ever want to assume that everybody knows what to do. And I've been hearing that a lot of people out there are starting to go on some interviews. They're finding jobs. I'm really excited and happy for the people in our group. There's a lot of activity going on in our group. And by the way, if you're not a part of our Job Seekers Strategies group, let me know. Comment below or inbox me and I can have you join it. We still have around, I think, 20 spots left. For people that are job seekers needing help with their job search this summer. My goal is to help 70 people with their job search this summer, so I wanted to make sure that I reached out and to let you know that as well. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. What are some of the things that you should do in your job search? Tip number one, make sure that you do bring copies of your resume with you when you go to the interview. Make sure that you do bring extra copies. You don't know how many people that will be interviewing you, so it's important that you bring copies for them. And if you haven't done so before, there is a such thing as resume paper, so make sure that you do have your resume on resume paper when you do print those out. So definitely make sure you bring enough copies for yourself, and then make sure you bring enough copies for the individuals too that will be interviewing you. Now, one of my favorite tips when I go on interviews is I actually keep my resume and I lay it out in front of me. So I have my resume and I have it right in front of me on that table. That way, when they ask me questions or when they ask me, well, give me an example of when this or that, I'm able to look down and just quickly scan over my resume and then come up with an example that I can share with them that they want to hear about regarding my experience and my accomplishments and what I bring to the table. So that's a really good tip for someone who may not be comfortable with interviewing, or you may think I get a little nervous when I'm interviewing and when they ask me those questions, I can't come up with a great example. Another tip for you to prepare for that ahead of time. Everybody say prepare. Prepare ahead of time. And one way you can prepare ahead of time is to look at your resume and come up with maybe around 7 or 8 examples, stories that you want to share with that interviewer about that project that you worked on. So if there were projects you worked on that you're really excited about, there were some accomplishments that you had received or obtained at those places of employment, list those out ahead of time so you can kind of already have in your mind, I'm going to talk about this example of when I led this team. I'm going to talk about this example when I oversaw a budget. I'm going to talk about this example when I had to deal with a difficult customer. Already have those type of examples in your head or have them written down, because when they ask you that question, it won't be hard for you to think of a scenario that you can share and talk with them and tell them about during the interview. So again, for those of you that don't like interviewing, those are definitely 2 good tips. One is to make sure that you do have your resume laid out in front of you so you can look down very briefly, and then think and read very quickly, and then think of that example that you want to share with them regarding how awesome you are and your accomplishments. Hi, Willie. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing too. I saw that you shared it. I really do appreciate it. We're going over some tips for you, things that you should do, what job seekers should do when it comes to looking for employment. So our next tip I'll share with you are for the ladies out there. Make sure that you have stockings on. Yes, make sure you have your nylons on. I know people want to walk out here with nothing on their legs. Your legs need to be covered up, even if it's hot. There really is something that you should do, ladies. Even though you may feel, okay, at work I don't have to wear them, you don't have the job yet. And it's very professional that you are suited up, looking very professional, and that you have your legs covered. Okay? Make sure you have your legs covered. All right? And then also for the ladies too, it's really important that you do have your toes covered. So even though it's summertime and we like to have our toes out, for an interview, that is not professional. That's not professional. So you may want to invest in some professional clothing. You may want to invest in some professional shoes. But do what you need to do so that you are professional. You don't want to be discredited from the interview or from the job because of your attire and your dress. So hi everybody, I see Willie joined back again. Hello Willie. And I see hi Gary. Thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate it. You said that thanks for these tips. I'm really glad that you have enjoyed the tips. And feel free to pass those along. That's the reason why I do this. I really enjoy it. Yeah, so ladies, make sure your legs are covered. Make sure your toes are covered. Okay, and we talked about having your resume, having extra copies of the resume, and then using it when they ask you those questions. You have to come up with an example of when you did something. That's called a behavior style interview, and a really good company will ask those type of questions. They're going to ask you, give me an example of when you had to work with a difficult person. What did you do, and what was the end result? Yeah, they're going to ask you that, or they may ask you a question saying, well, give me an example of when you had to multitask. What did you do? What was the project you worked on, and what was the end result? Right? Or they may ask a question of, here in our company, it's important that you're able to get things done and meet deadlines. Can you give me an example of when you had a difficult project you had to complete and you didn't meet the deadline? What was your step in that process, and what was the end result? Those are examples of behavior style interview questions. And a great company will ask you those type of questions, okay? Another question that you should be mindful of as well is another example is find out what type of interview it will be. Sometimes it will be a panel interview, or it may be a one-on-one interview, okay? So find out what kind of interview that it will be, and then make sure that you do it. Okay, that you prepare for it. Because a lot of times companies now are doing panel interviews where you have to be interviewed by a group of people, and you need to know how to maneuver that, because that alone can mess people up and they don't know what to do, right? So be prepared if it's going to be a panel interview, if it's going to be a one-on-one interview, if it's going to be a situational interview, meaning that they may throw you into or put you into a situation just to see how you will handle it. It may be a stress interview, meaning that they will put you in a situation that's stressful just to see how you can handle it. There are all kinds of interviews nowadays. I want to make sure that you are prepared for the interview. So if it's a panel interview, make sure that you have copies of the resumes for the people. Make sure that you know who to address in the room. And the first tip I always say, make sure you know where to sit. That panel interview is tricky, and you don't want to sit in the wrong seat that's for someone else. So make sure you've asked them, where can I sit? Is this the right spot for me to sit, etc.? But ask them that question. Yes, and Willie says here, too, they can go to the thrift store if they can't afford to buy something. That is true. There are thrift stores that you can go to get clothing, and there are wonderful nonprofit organizations, too, that provide clothing for job seekers. And I know Jackets for Jobs is one of them that's here local in Michigan, and I know she's all over the world now. But if you need help with clothing attire, men or women, feel free to inbox me, let me know, or comment below, and we'll have some resources for you regarding that. But it is important that you do look professional and that you know how to prepare for the interview. And nowadays there's so many different types of interviews. I don't want you to be become a little nervous when you find out that it really is a panel interview and you thought it was just going to be a one-on-one interview. So another thing for you to be mindful of too is make sure that you do ask them if it's going to, and there's some interviews where you actually go on a tour, or you may meet with somebody and then they take you to another location, or they take you to another room. They normally would give you the itinerary so you would know who you're meeting with. But if not, you may want to ask for it. So that's really a part of a second interview. Once they're really interested in you, they may ask you to meet other people on their team. Okay, so when you reach that level, you're doing a great thing, because they're really interested in you, and now it's time for you to meet the rest of their team. And then the last tip I'll give to you that you must do, and that is at the end of the interview, is really important that you look them straight in their eye and you give them a firm handshake, and you thank them for the opportunity. You thank them for the opportunity for the interview. And then if that's something after that interview, if you really realize that you really do want that job, that is your job, you see your name, that's your spot, you know that's your job, Let them know that. Shake their hand and say, you know, thank you so much for the opportunity for the interview. By the way, I want you to know that I'm very interested in job. I've been looking forward to this interview. I've always wanted to work for the organization. After this interview, you just solidified that this is my position. This job is for me. You know, I'm very interested in the opportunity. What are the next steps? Be serious about it. So if you really want that job, let them know that you want it. And I know people shun that off. People go, yeah. I know I got to do a firm handshake. Yeah. I know I got to say thank you. But be firm about it. If that is your position and after that interview, you know that's your job, be firm and let them know. That's one way how you can stand above all the other candidates and wow that interviewer at the end. Because they may not realize that you want that job. Just because you interview with them, they may have doubts in their head. So you need to clear all those doubts that they had. All right? And I'll give you an extra nugget. This is one of my favorite questions. Okay? So we're at the end of the interview. Yes, it went well. Yes, you want the job. You're interested in the job. One question I always like to ask is there anything that, what's the question I normally ask, Lord? Are there any concerns that you have regarding hiring me? Is there anything that I can clarify or speak up or talk about before we go? That's not how I actually word it, but it's about if you have any concerns, I want to know what their concerns are up front so that I'm able to address it before the interview. Because the goal is that we address it before the interview. I'm able to answer the questions before I leave so that they have no concerns with me being there at the interview and me being the right person for the job. So again, I wanted to come back out here and give you some tips on things that you can do, things that you should do when it comes to looking for employment. Earlier we talked about some unwritten rules, things you shouldn't do. And if you're interested in that one, make sure you check out that other video because I did go over some unwritten rules, y'all, some things that people are messing up with, they're messing up on, and they're not getting interviews or they're messing up their interviews because they're doing things that an HR person or that recruiter they're thinking, I don't know about this, and I don't know about that candidate, and they're losing opportunities. So again, I wanted to jump in and give you those tips on some secrets to the unwritten rules there, things that you should do for your job search, things you shouldn't do for your job search. And again, I shared with you earlier that tomorrow I'm working on a big project with a client. We got 100 people registered for our event that's coming up for LinkedIn. I'm going to train them on how to network on LinkedIn, how to use that LinkedIn social media platform. And for those of you that may be interested in you recognizing that, wait a minute, I need to have a profile on LinkedIn, or you haven't updated it in a while, or you may not understand what LinkedIn is about, but you've heard people talk about it and you know in your heart of hearts you should be on it. LinkedIn is the #1 social media platform for job seekers and for professionals. So if you don't have a strong LinkedIn profile, if you're not on LinkedIn daily, if you're not up to date with their current changes on LinkedIn, if you don't have your resume uploaded on LinkedIn, if you're not networking with recruiters and headhunters on LinkedIn and people in your network, then that's something that you really should be doing. I'm loving the hearts down below, y'all. Thank you so much. So I'm talking to you if you know you need your LinkedIn profile done. So again, if that's something that you know you need, feel free to comment below, inbox me, let me know, or click that link above. And we can talk and connect. I'm right now doing a special helping people with their profile, their resume, and their cover letter. So they get a cover letter, their resume, and a new LinkedIn profile. And I'm working with them on their LinkedIn profile to help them with their job search. So if you have questions, feel free to let me know, inbox me, message me, and I'll contact you back. But I wanted to step away for a moment to give you some tips of the secrets to the unwritten rules regarding what to do and what not to do during your job search. I'm loving all the hearts, everybody. You guys gonna make me cry. But again, this is Kimberly Benjamin, your job search coach and your professional resume writer. Just reminding you to stay encouraged and reminding you to live your life on purpose as well. And contact me if you have any questions. It would be my honor to serve you. And if you're not a part of our job search group, please inbox me, comment below so we can get you added to our job seekers strategy group where I'm helping 75 people with their job search this summer. Bye, everybody.